Hey there, kiddos. We're back for another chapter with Jack and Annie in Dark Day in the Deep Sea. Now, last week, I think our video got cut off a little bit, so we didn't get all of the pages from chapter 3. So I'm going to go back a few pages and catch up on where Jack and Annie are at and who they met. So, we'll go back. Annie, Jack said between her teeth. He gave her a look that said, just stop. Jack was pretty sure that many subs hadn't been invented by the early 1870s. He quickly changed the subject again. And you study butterflies too? He said, pointing at Henry's net. And seashells? Indeed I do, said Henry. In fact, I came ashore to search for a rare shell just now, and I think I may have found its cousin. He opened his book to a page that showed a pencil drawing of the shell. Would you like us to help look for you? Why, thank you, said Henry. But I have quite successfully found what I came for. We'll be going back to our ship now. Oh, please, can we visit the HMS Challenger? Annie blurted out. Out of the question, said the sailor named Joe. Well, said Henry. Sir, the captain would never approve of bringing children on board. Tommy broke in. It's absolutely against the rules. Henry looked at Jack and Annie. Jack didn't want to break any rules, but at the same time, he really wanted to visit the ship. We'd really like to learn more about sea exploration, he said. He gave the scientist a hopeful smile. We promise not to get in anyone's way, said Annie, and our parents like us to learn new things. Henry turned back to the two seamen. Surely such bright and curious young people should be allowed to visit our ship, he said. Since we'll be drifting and dredging in the area all day, we can return them to the seashore before nightfall. Joe and Tommy frowned at each other, but Joe finally gave a quick nod. Yay! And he said, Thanks, said Jack. We promise we won't cause any trouble. See that you don't, said Henry with a smile. Joe and Tommy, would you mind lending our two visitors two life preservers? Never'll fit 'em, sir, said Joe. Well, we must do what we can to keep them safe, said Henry. The two seamen sighed and handed Jack and Annie their bulky vests. So these are old-fashioned life preservers, thought Jack. The vests were made of blocks of cork tied together. Even though Jack buckled his tightly, it hung low on his body and almost slipped right off. I'm afraid they are rather big, said Henry. But still, they might save you if we flip over. Don't worry, said Annie. We're really good swimmers. We should go now, sir, Joe said impatiently. Yes, yes, Henry said. Let's be off. Joe and Tommy pushed the rowboat into the shallow water. While Jack and Annie had been talking to Henry, the water had turned choppy. Dark gray clouds had rolled in, hiding the sun. Climb in after me, Henry told Jack and Annie, and they followed him into the rowboat. Jack's backpack wouldn't fit over his life jacket, so he clutched the pack to his chest as Joe and Tommy pushed the boat farther into the ocean. The sailors jumped in, picked up their oars, and began rowing back to the ship. And that's the end of chapter 3. So today is chapter 4, and the title for today's chapter is Off the Ship. All right, guys. The wind's against us, Joe said as he and Tommy rowed. Even after the boat moved past the breakers, it kept bouncing up and down on the swell of the waves. Water splashed over the sides and soaked Jack's clothes. But Jack wasn't worried about the wind or the water. He was worried about being seasick because waves of nausea, stomach aches, had started to come over him. Sorry, it's a bit rough going, said Henry. We can take it, Annie said. We hope, thought Jack. The last thing he wanted to do was throw up, especially in front of Joe and Tommy. We should get back just in time to see the men haul up the morning's catch, said Henry. This is so much fun, said Annie, her eyes shining as the little rowboat bobbed up and down. Jack wasn't having any fun at all. To keep from being sick, he gripped his backpack close, closed his eyes, and gritted his teeth. Every day we make new discoveries, said Henry. Off the coast of Argentina, we found over 100 new species. Giant worms several feet long, Shrimp the size of lobsters. Caught them in our nets, didn't we, Joe? Aye, said Joe as he pulled up an oar, but the creatures that's never been caught is the one that these mates should be worried about. What creature is that? Asked Annie. The great monster, answered Tommy. Jack's eyes lit up. What do you mean? Like a shark? He said. No, no, lad. 'Tis much worse than any shark. Even the 20-foot tiger shark that's been following us, said Tommy. The sailor blinked nervously. Whoa! 20-foot tiger shark? Thought Jack. He looked at the dark waters for a shark fin. Aye, the monster's much bigger than any shark, shouted Joe. They say it looks like a cross between a dragon and a giant starfish. Nay, more like a floating nest of snakes, said Tommy with a shudder. They say it'll curl up around your body and strangle you. A floating nest of snakes? Annie asked. Jack gulped. He turned to Henry. Have you seen this monster? Henry shook his head. I've never seen it, he said, but a few of our crewmen claim to have seen something monstrous in these waters just yesterday. Don't be scared, mates, said Joe. If we see a monster, we'll hurl our harpoons at him. We'll shoot him with our cannons, said Tommy. He and Joe laughed loudly. Maybe the sailors on the ship are just trying to scare the scientists, Jack thought hopefully. Why else would they be laughing? When they reached the HMS Challenger, the rowboat drew alongside the big ship, rocking on the water. Jack gripped his pack tighter as more waves of seasickness washed over him. You go first, mate, Joe said to Jack. You're looking a bit sick. Clutching his pack under one arm, Jack grabbed the sides of the ladder. He held on tightly and climbed up the wooden hull of the ship up to the top deck. Annie came after him, then Henry, then Joe, and last Tommy. When they were all on the deck, the two seamen hauled up the rowboat. Jack took a long, deep breath. Though the large ship rocked in the wind, it wasn't nearly as bad as the small rowboat's movement on the waves. Looking around the deck, Jack saw teams of sailors working. Some were wrapping thick ropes. Others were hauling up strange-looking buckets. Jack turned and asked Henry what the sailors were doing. But Henry was staring at a tall man in a white uniform and a heavy-set older man in a dark suit, who were walking briskly towards them. The two men were frowning. Oh, no, murmured Henry, preparing to meet thy doom. Who are they? Asked Annie. Before Henry could answer, the man in white shouted, What have you done this time, Mr. Mosley? Jack moved closer to Annie. He clutched his pack to his life vest. Well, Captain, started Henry. Goodness, what have you brought up from the sea this time, Henry? The larger man asked. A four-legged, four-armed creature of the deep? Yes, Professor. It's Jack and Annie from America, said Henry. I found the creature vacationing on the island. The portly man smiled. Oh, I see. I thought perhaps it was a monster that was sighted by some of the men yesterday. Oh, the monster again, thought Jack. This ship is not a place for children, Mr. Mosley, the captain said gruffly. Yes, I know, sir, said Henry, but these two are extraordinary. They hardly seem like children at all. They're quite independent and have great knowledge of the sea. I thought it might be smart to bring them aboard for the afternoon and then return them to the shore. I'm afraid it goes against all the ship's rules, said the captain. It's not Henry's fault, Captain, Annie piped in. We begged him to let us visit your ship. Aye, did you now? The portly man asked, his eyes twinkling. Why is that? We love the ocean, said Annie, and we'd really like to learn more about the sea exploration, sir, said Jack. Well, you've come to the right place, said the man. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Professor Thompson, the scientific director of the Challenger. The professor is one of the world's most renowned experts on the ocean, said Henry. Wow, said Annie. Well, I don't know about that, said the professor. But he put his thumb in his vest and began speaking as if he were giving a lecture. Since the beginning of time, the secrets of the deep have been hidden from us. But now, with our expedition, we have learned many things. Like what? Asked Jack. We have used miles and miles of steel wire to measure the depth of the ocean, said the professor. We have lowered thermometers to measure the temperature in the deep water. But perhaps, most important of all, we are learning about the amazing creatures who live in the dark regions beneath the ocean waves. That is all good and well, Professor, the captain broke in, but I want these children off the ship immediately, before the weather gets worse. Do you hear me, Mr. Henry? Off the ship! And that's the end of chapter 4. All right, boys and girls. So, if you get a chance, I would love for you to turn to your next journal entry, okay? And work on your illustration and your details and write your sentences below and take your time doing your very best with your finger spaces, your capital at the beginning, and your punctuation mark at the end. All right, guys, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I can't wait to get to the next chapter in our book. All right, guys, have a great day. Adios.